Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be doing a live update on Hurricane Delta. Just I'm going to go ahead and very quickly try to get Airfix set up here before we get started. Let my Twitter followers know that I'm live. One second. Alrighty, here we go. So welcome anybody that's going to be joining the live stream here late this morning. So yeah. Hurricane Delta. A lot of things happened yesterday with Delta. Uh, but before I get started there, the reason why I did not make a video yesterday is because my internet's been out most of the day, so I was unfortunately not able to get out a video yesterday. But the internet's back up and running today, so that's some good news there. So that's out of the way. Let's go ahead and take a look into Delta. This is the infrared satellite imagery right now. And as you can see here, pretty impressive cloud tops here. About negative 80 to negative 90 degrees Celsius here. Or that may be in Fahrenheit. No, that's in Celsius. So some pretty impressive cloud tops, even over land. So that's kind of concerning here, in my opinion here, if it's going to be holding up like this over land. I mean, and it's also stayed quite organized as well with this storm here over land. So that's kind of concerning here. I mean, it's getting close to going back over the waters again. Your center of circulation is somewhere right in here. It's going to be hard to tell, but it's going to be back over the waters maybe later tonight. So it's kind of concerning here. We're not really seeing much of any, you know, this organization on Delta right now over land, which is kind of giving me some concerns here. And let's take a look to what it is right now. So, got Hurricane Delta affecting Mexico right now, with winds of 105 miles an hour, with central pressure at 974 millibars now. There's been a lot of stuff going on weather Twitter, talking about the National Hurricane Center not per telling like the right wind speeds or whatever, because Raycon data has been showing 110 mile an hour winds. Meanwhile, the National Hurricane Center is not even close to that. It's still like 130 miles an hour. So, but what happened to Hurricane Delta? Now, I do believe it was some wind shear that got involved with Hurricane Delta. That's probably why it, died down quite a bit. So, we're now back down to a Category 2 hurricane. However, we do expect this thing here to intensify again when it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. And here's one of the players here. I found a map for ocean heat content. This is what I've been talking about here. So Delta's right over here, and this is one of the reasons why it's been rapidly intensifying is because of its very high ocean heat content. It is off the charts. I mean, it's quite crazy there, but look where it's going to be going. It's going to go into some favorable ocean heat content here as well. But look up nearby Louisiana. It's actually quite low, so that's some good news there. We do expect this to die down before it makes landfall into Louisiana, so that's some good news. But the bad news is it's going to be intensifying some more when it gets into more of this favorable ocean heat content here. So that's kind of unfortunate there. And the National Hurricane Center is still predicting this thing here to be becoming a Category 4 hurricane, which I believe it's 130 miles an hour. But at landfall, it's going to be like 120 to 125. I believe that's their forecast right now. But as you can see here, they do expect this thing here to be a major hurricane, which is just now hurricane watches in effect here, anywhere from just east of Houston and Galveston, Texas, all the way into portions of southeastern Louisiana. So we got hurricane watches in effect for those regions there. So if you're in around Lake Charles, Port Arthur maybe. Honestly, don't know where that is, to be honest. Really, in general, if you're in the hurricane watch, just keep an eye on the system here. Get prepared to get evacuated, which I'm sure there's going to be evacuations out there very soon. It's forecasted to be making landfall at some point during Friday at this time here, so get prepared. Central and western Louisiana get prepared for impact, even including far southeastern Texas may is going to need to get prepared as well. Now keep in mind, in the cone here, this is where the eye is going to be going, and we do expect Delta to get much larger here, which I'll show you guys with this model here, the HWRF model. Now, it did a pretty good job on Laura, so let's take a look onto this model here. You can see how it expands in size here quite a bit. 948 millibars, 941, 939 at one point. But then when it gets over into those cooler waters, lower ocean heat content, even a little bit increased wind shear, it's going to be dying down. You can see it makes landfall look to be maybe potentially a major hurricane. Lost connection to the live stream on my phone. If I get back on, there we go. I do apologize, guys, if it does cut in and out. I don't know how to fix that issue. But going back to this here, you can see here, it's going to be making landfall, unfortunately, a Category 3 hurricane for Louisiana. Some of these same areas here already got hit hard by Major Hurricane Laura back in August. So this is very, very unfortunate here. And hopefully the worst of it will miss them to these. That's what I'm kind of hoping for, because Lake Charles, some of those surrounding areas definitely do not need another major hurricane. Even Louisiana overall just doesn't need another hurricane, because I believe this may be their fourth tropical system to make landfall, I believe. So they don't really need any tropical systems. Now, there's other threats that will come with this system. You got storm surge, tons of rain, a few tornadoes out there as well. We'll be taking a look into those, but we don't have the storm surge forecast from the National Hurricane Center, so we won't really quite talk about that. But what I do know is there's going to be some storm surge out there, so that's going to be one of the primary threats there. And going into the severe threat side of things, you can see here potentially some rotating thunderstorms right here in eastern Louisiana. So anybody in eastern Louisiana, or in general east or on the east side of the system here, definitely need to watch for the possibility for a few tornadoes out there, which typically during which typically with tropical systems they can produce some tornadoes, and it's quite normal for that to happen. And as you can see here, going into uh, early Saturday morning, you still see some rotating thunderstorms, uh, kind of far east side of the system here. That may continue to move to the east and northeast there as well. So just keep an eye on the severe weather threat there as well. And we'll use the NAM here. Now keep in mind, it'll probably be overdoing this here, just to keep in mind. So this is supercell composite. And as you can see here, pretty favorable environment for supercells when it gets into southeastern Louisiana. And let's click on the sounding here. And as you can see here, very favorable environment for tornadoes. And you can see the photograph is just off the chart right there. And very strong wind shear at the low levels. So definitely a very favorable environment for tornadoes. But when we kind of get into Saturday here, Alabama is going to be under the gun for it. Mississippi, I think it's going to be more of an overnight threat for you guys, but for Alabama, it's going to be happening during the day. And typically during the day, you get some instability. And this is what we're going to be seeing here. So anybody that lives in Alabama definitely need to watch for the severe threat. And here's sounding here. The photograph looks pretty good, unfortunately. You got some wind shear going on close to the surface. You do have some instability. 650 cape there. That's not bad for severe weather, but it's not going to take much of instability to have a big time tornado threat with this type of setup here, especially in southeastern Louisiana where there's like very little instability. So, but anyways, just to keep in mind, just watch for the tornado threat. And it seems like it does increase by this model here into South Carolina and Georgia, maybe even into North Carolina as well, portions of Tennessee. Pretty good holograph there as well, but we'll have a little better idea with the severe threat as we kind of get closer uh, around that time there. But overall, gotta watch for the tornado threat for Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, maybe even the Florida Panhandle as well, maybe even potentially the Carolinas as well. So we'll be watching the tornado threat there closely. Let's look into those significant tornado parameters really quick. Surprisingly enough, for me, not showing that not really high numbers here. Figure they showing very high numbers, but apparently it's not. So that's some good news there. But generally, over a 1, you do have a tornado threat in with it. So those numbers there don't take much to have a tornado threat. So really, in those dark greens and yellows there, type of colors, you pretty much have a tornado threat, indicating by the name. This is a similar sounding that we showed with the supercell composite in southeastern Louisiana. And as you can see, our tornado threat does increase a little bit when it gets into Alabama, Georgia, and eventually into the Carolinas as well. You can see about as high as maybe a 3, so definitely a tornado threat will be around for some of those regions, so keep in mind of that there as well. Let's talk about the, well, we already talked about that. Whoops. Um, let's talk about the rainfall. That's going to be another threat as well. Now we're going to back this down to the next 5 days here. And as you can see here, what the Weather Prediction Center is predicting, you can see rainfall anywhere from 4 to maybe 7 inches of rain for a few areas, maybe 8 inches cannot be ruled out across portions of Louisiana into western Mississippi, eastern Arkansas, western Tennessee, and then eventually into southwestern Kentucky there as well. So there's going to be a lot of rain coming for those states there that I just called out here. So watch out for the flash flooding threat as well. Definitely cannot be ruled out as well. And if you guys do have any questions, you can go in and put in the chat. I'll be answering you guys' questions. So again, don't be surprised if Delta intensifies when it gets back over to the waters in the Gulf of Mexico. The good news is that it'll die down before it makes landfall, so that's some good news there. Here's a forecast I made last night here. Keep in mind it's last night, it's outdated. Don't have really much time to update this, but right now, so far I got the timing good, but not so much with the intensity at all. Uh, Pretty much put a halt on the intensity there. It's right now 105, 110 miles an hour at this time here. So basically, your system is about right here. Here's what I'm. Of course, the timing will change as well, but really kind of beyond that. I mean, these numbers here are likely change, but kind of beyond that here, I may keep these numbers same, maybe bring them down a little bit. Like bring this down here at landfall category 3, I will be forecasting 120 miles an hour. Probably won't get as high as 135 miles an hour, probably about as high as 130 miles an hour. But landfall is actually looking to be Friday. It says Saturday morning there as well. So it's just kind of ignore the timing. I'll tell you guys the timing at landfall is looking to be during the day on Friday. So to keep in mind of that. And then when it gets into Mississippi, portions of Arkansas, it'll be a tropical storm with 70-mile-an-hour winds. Then a little bit more into central Mississippi, tropical storm still of 45-mile-an-hour winds. Then when it gets into northwestern Alabama to Tennessee, it'll be a tropical depression with 35-mile-an-hour winds. And then eventually when it gets into Kentucky, it'll be a tropical depression with 25-mile-an-hour winds. Keep in mind, these are sustained winds, not wind gusts. Wind gusts could be higher than these numbers here. Just to keep in mind of that. That's how this works here as well. But I'll likely be updating this forecast here later today. But I'll tell you guys, I'll be forecasting Category 3 hurricane, 120 mile an hour winds at landfall during the day on Friday. So, on that, if you guys do have any questions, you can go and put in the chat. Well, you guys have not said anything yet. Let's take a look into some models here about rainfall. Let's take a look into that. X that off. So let's go here. Let's take a look into some ensembles here. Well, not quite ensembles. Actually, let's take a look into the Euro first. So I would not really whether be using the European model in the system here because as you can see here, not doing quite a good job. But let's just focus more on the rain side of things. You can see here it makes landfall, I think a little bit too far to the west. What if I can remember from Laura? It was making landfall too far to the west, so I think it'd be making more landfall, maybe somewhere between Lake Charles and Morgan City. That's probably about as far east as Morgan City. That's part of the general idea for where it can make landfall. You can see here it kind of moves to the northeast. Then a big system starts to develop into the plains there as well. Jerry Rochester says, do you think that Florida still has the possibility of being ahead? Florida is very unlikely at this time here, although you guys could see the outer bands, at least for the panhandle of Florida, so to keep in mind that. But a direct hit looks very unlikely. It's looking to be more likely for Louisiana at this time. So, getting back into this here, here's the rainfall amounts. This is over the next 10 days. Let's back it off to 5 days. You can see there's forecasted some of the highest amounts, a little bit above 8 inches of rain, eastern Texas, western Louisiana, southern Arkansas, 5 to 6 inches of rain, and getting to northern Mississippi, maybe up to 5 inches of rain, western Tennessee, 2 to 4 inches of rain, then to Kentucky, probably a general 1 to 3 inches of rain there as well. Let's compare it to the GFS model here, see what it says. You can see it's a little bit further to the east here. A little bit lower on the rainfall amounts. I would agree more on with the European model with this here. You can see here eastern Louisiana up to 6 inches of rain, southeastern Arkansas up to 5 inches, general 2, 4, maybe close to 5 inches of rain across western Mississippi, western Tennessee, pretty much similar situation. Then into Kentucky here, generally maybe 2 to 4 inches of rain in general. I'll probably agree on the track a little bit more from the GFS, but I do agree a little bit more with the European model on the rainfall totals than the track of it. So, just to give my general thoughts on it, if I would make the forecast, it would be similar to the weather predictions. I mean, I do agree for forecast pretty much 100%. I think it's a pretty accurate forecast there. Let's see here. Let's take a look to some ensembles, the GFS ensembles. See its thoughts on here. We'll choose this area. Let's take a look at the mean. So this is putting I believe, like 20 members into one. It kind of brings into a mean on an average of what they're predicting. And here it is right here, showing pretty high rainfall amounts. You can see those pink colors mean 4 to 5 inches. Purple colors, that's when you get over 5 inches of rain. Then these blue colors, that's like above 6 to 8 inches of rain. So that's tons of rain, but even the reds here is still quite a bit of rain. That's close to 3 inches in a few areas. Here you can see here we're expanded to southwestern Kentucky as well. So really anybody in far eastern Texas, most of Louisiana, eastern Arkansas, western Mississippi, western Tennessee, and even into portions of Kentucky here. Definitely need to watch for the flash flooding threat because it's looking to be could be a lot of rain coming for you guys there. So I think that's pretty. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you guys some of the other hurricane models with the tracks and stuff. I knew I was forgetting something. So this will be the last thing we'll be taking a look into before we end the live stream. This is the hurricane models with the track of Hurricane Delta. Very good agreement here, just west of Morgan City and east of Lake Charles there. Pretty good agreement on with that there. You can see it brings the track into central Louisiana, then eventually into central northern Mississippi, into central Tennessee, and eventually into southeastern Kentucky, and eventually bringing into the mid-Atlantic states and the portions of the Ohio Valley as well. Again, pretty good agreement with the hurricane models with this here. So, and they've been doing pretty good so far this hurricane season. So that's a pretty good news there to see, having a pretty good agreement with that. Here's the GFS. It's almost quite similar with the track with the hurricane models there as well. Here's the GFS on the parallel models here, pretty similar as well. And I think in general, here the landfall is going to be somewhere between Lake Charles and Morgan City. So if you're guys in between Lake Charles and Morgan City, I would evacuate right now. So that's a looking to be where it may make landfall, but it's also looking to be the more likely scenario, unfortunately. Here's the intensity forecast. You can see here we do expect this to become a major hurricane again when it gets into the Gulf. Then when it makes landfall, you can tell here it brings it all the way down to a tropical depression. But ignore these models here that keeping it at category 1, a tropical storm. I don't know what's going on with those models. Just focus on these group of models here that do bring it into a tropical depression. More than likely the models to watch here. So yeah, guys, do you guys have any questions before I leave the stream here? Give you guys a minute to type down someone in the chat. Trying to think if I have anything else to show you guys. Take a look at this, see what's going on. Oh yeah, recon plane. I don't know if they have a plane in there or not. Let's see if they do have a recon plane. Aircraft recon. So I got that plane there. Looks like this guy here is leaving, maybe. Might be. See, winds really 64 to 83 knots there. They measured there. That's pretty much a category 2 hurricane strength there. Seems like overall we don't have any planes in there right now, so. But I'm sure we'll have more planes in there very soon today when it gets over the waters again. But seems like you guys do not have any questions, so I'm going to end it here. Hope you guys did enjoy this live update on Hurricane Delta. If you guys like this update, hit that like button. If you really do like my channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, you can put it in the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions. I'll see you guys in the next one.